satchel and shotgun to the guy who was repairing. He looked at me while I was satcheling him. Hope you like pineapples, motherfucker. Interrupt this broadcast of democracy to bring you Vet Chat. Yeah, that's right. It's Vet Chat, everybody. Let's go. Hello,
Yeah.
gentlemen.
Hi. Hello.
Hi, welcome to Vet Chat. Ladies
Good
and
to
gents,
be
we
here.
got Stefan and Tim here. Both
Everybody.
gangster level airborne Canadians. And we are here to talk about a tandem between the book Instinctive Measures and an experience within that Special Forces community. How are you, gentlemen? Thank you for joining me tonight.
Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome as always.
So I just finished. I'm about a third, I would say, of the way done your book stuff, and the only reason it's taking me so long is because my heart keeps crapping out at me, and I'm like, I gotta wait a minute before I read the next chapter. Holy shit! Like, wow. Outside of the humanitarian and combat efforts and everything else that you guys have done, you've also been through the absolute ringer when it comes to pharmaceutical study. What can you vibe off that?
Don't blame the pharmaceutical industry for wanting to make a profit.
Hmm.
I blame Health Canada for not reining them in. And I think in this particular case, Roche, which was the manufacturer, made it clear that the drug was dangerous and it needed to have a safety study done so that the user would know it's dangerous. And that, I think they did their due diligence on.
Why such the
problem
rush?
was-
Like we weren't in a declared war state. Why such the rush?
It's worse than that. In '85, research from WHO, which was published in '87, showed a 38% neuropsychiatric injury rate from the drug. So why were we even seeking the drug in 1991, 92 in the first place?
10 years later, almost.
Well, at least five, because 1991, that's when they started the trial.
Mhm.
And in October 92, they shelved the study.
Okay, so there was data that it was causing neurological damage before it was issued.
At
And
least 5
then
years
you were
before.
sent to a malaria negligent zone.
No, there was no malaria.
You were sent to the desert where there are not mosquitoes.
Sand fleas, maybe, or
Yeah.
camel spiders, or
We sent them to the Amazon. Like no, guys, no, that's not the case. Sand fleas, yes. What is the virus borne by the sand flea? Is there one?
No.
Not sure, but we're told we weren't allowed to give blood for like 6 months or something like that, like donate blood after we returned. I remember that.
And that was from the methylquinone breakdown in the bloodstream. It has a half-life of 2 weeks.
Right.
And we had to continue taking the medication for at least 4 weeks, I think it was, when we got back.
How many doses was it?
Weekly. So
every single week?
For me, yeah, 8 months in total. Minimum.
Okay. So exposure was determined by deployment.
Yeah, but at the same time, one pill can do as much damage as 6 months worth of medication.
And do you know anybody with multiple deployments on the same medication?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Dave Bona, yeah, he did multiple deployments, and oh, Mike Rood did multiple deployments as well. In fact, uh, no, not it wasn't Mike Rood, but I think it was Brown. Can't remember his first name
Would you say
right
they're in
offhand.
a better or worse
But
state than you today?
all depends on the individual. I remember with Brown, he had done I think total of 6 tours on Epliquin over a 14-year period before he had his first reaction.
Oh my. Okay.
Whereas I know, once again from the book, there introduced Leah, and she had one tablet, and she ended up in a wheelchair, drooling, like heavily drugged, sedated back to Canada.
And now I know in we're going to reach on the far right of the spectrum right now, and that science fiction would dictate that there is eugenics and improvements and all these other things, and obviously there are going to be negative side effects from that. But would you
Well,
say the benefit?
One thing I want to say first is there's I can't remember the soldier's name. Steph, you might remember, but he went to Rwanda after, and on Christmas Day, I think he called home and he committed suicide.
yes, Smith.
So Mike Root has his picture. I can't remember his name off top. I'm bad with names.
His last name was
On
Smith.
his truck. Yeah.
And is that based off a collapse of neurological structure?
In his case, I suspect he was hallucinating. Um, Myself, my hallucinations were I completely lost time, space, and reality.
Right.
Um, and so it is a high. Like he had just phoned home, um, and like he had a great conversation. He was looking forward to coming home, and that night he apparently committed suicide. But we also know multiple guys who woke up with weapons loaded in their hands, doing things. They have no idea what they were doing or why they were doing it.
Involuntarily.
So totally, yeah.
Hmm.
And this is where Tim's story comes in, because the real interesting thing, and there's a few things about Tim and I that are a little bit different. So you should probably talk a little bit. People know a little bit more about my past right now because it's not my first time speaking. But if I can do a little bit of background on Tim, Tim was what we call the leg, and if you dissect leg, it means lacking enough guts,
Hmm.
right? And that means he's never done a jump course, right? However, here's the point of interest. In World War II, when they first joined the Special Forces and formed it, they had ground commandos and air commandos. Now, the interesting thing about Tim is Tim did absolutely everything I did except jump out of the airplane. So Tim is an actual ground commando. And so he has done all the things that I have done, all the same training, that kind of stuff. But what the second part, which is really interesting on Tim's story, is Tim was never diagnosed. He was given a provisional diagnosis, deemed an administrative burden, and released from the military without medical treatment
Right.
and without compensation. And as a result, he ended up in prison. It took him decades to recover, much like myself as well. And um, another significant difference is Tim only just got his medical pension after 30 years a year
Just
ago.
yeah, I got my deck. I think just before the new year.
Hmm.
So I started in 2019 applying to Veterans Affairs after seeing things on the news over the decade or more before about Methquin and the Airborne Regiment in Somalia, and figured out that that's me too. And investigating that, exploring that, and soon after I met Steph and reconnected with him through another coincidence of um, similar people we were talking to,
Hmm.
and it's probably the best thing that ever happened. You just helped me in my journey of recovery, both mentally, but and just how I felt about myself and my time in my career and what I had gone through because of all
For sure.
um, the BS that there's no safety study done on the methaquin, for example. And I probably should have never gone to Somalia to be honest. If they would have screened me beforehand because I was having marital problems, and that was one of the criteria they wanted you to be assessed beforehand while you're in theater and upon your return from theater to see how you were as part of that safety study, and none of that was done in any way, shape, or form.
They were
So the other
utilizing
thing,
you as a human trial.
well, it goes
Yeah,
worse than that. Worse than that. If you really truly think about it for a minute, for 30 years, right? They they considered him an administrative burden, and that's what he was released as. So that's his perspective as well, right? Was that he was an administrative burden,
Right.
right? There's something wrong with him. It couldn't have been from the methylquin because he just thought that there was something wrong with him. But it wasn't him. He was not the problem. It wasn't his personality. It's what what this drug does to your personality. It completely alters it.
Yeah.
You become like I could not recognize half of the things I was doing or saying, right? So for 30 years, without knowing the truth, right, Tim had to, deal with his past and be responsible for that when he really wasn't responsible for it.
Right.
You know, Department of National Defense, Health Canada, Government of Canada, there's your responsibility, and they still have not taken responsibility.
Well, and with an empathetic approach, I have a physical injury that I still won't deal with. I'm sure eventually I will take your advice, and I have begun the slow process of retrieving medical documents and whatnot. But
Good.
I could only imagine the difference in a mental injury. And
So
I had blackouts. I had like a disassociation. I had experienced rage I never experienced before. That was not part of my character,
yep,
personality beforehand.
when I can empathize completely, I'll tell you that my neck injury, if my neck is not in line, I'm a completely different personality. If my neck is finally adjusted where I had a girlfriend that was able to help me keep it in line, and for a little while now that I don't have that, it's been difficult. But when my neck is in line, I think clearly, I breathe clearly. I don't feel any anxiety or depression. But all that takes is a slight adjustment during the day or sleeping improperly at night to fuck my next day up and potentially every day after that until it realigns. And that's
that's
in a
right. And
in
so
a
what?
one-dimensional sense, not a three-dimensional sense like a mental,
Mm.
you know.
So what people don't get about a mental health issue, right, is that the brain is a
That's right.
physical entity of the body,
Yeah,
right? And if the brain is not physically healthy, if you aren't feeding it correctly, if you're not taking care of it, you cannot even hope for mental health recovery.
yeah,
Because in order to have a mental health recovery, first you have to have the physical. And so anyone going into combat for their mental health, and by I mean combat, I mean you're going to take on the mental health industry that says it's going to help you. Um, you need to understand that they cannot do anything for you until you first resolve physical health issues first.
that's right.
And without that being done, there's never going to be mental health recovery.
Oh, 100%.
And
Yeah, and
then
it's the
Yeah,
chicken before the egg too. Like, do you start healing the body before the mind before the body? And the key is both at the same time, or it doesn't work.
yeah,
then they initially gave me adjustment disorder diagnosis, which meant to be temporary and with follow up. And there was no follow up. Um, and then I suffered from anxiety, depression. I had suicidal thoughts multiple times, um, throughout the 30 years. And I had the odd one, once in a while, but they don't last too long today because of I'm able to have better cope mechanisms.
Hmm.
But back then they just basically kicked me to the curb.
I see behind you a Star Wars poster. Is
Yeah,
fantasy at all an inspiration in your staying sane?
yeah. So like this is my little office, and I got a lot of memory stuff behind me, and yeah, Lord of the Rings and some veteran stuff and some family pictures in here, and things that left me up and gave me a safe place.
Now, let's go on the outside of that. And where does sci-fi and fantasy help you heal and restore?
I think I gotta show you this quick. It's my service dog's just getting out from underneath my legs. French.
Puppy.
Anyway, he's stretching his legs. I just got him in September. Um, I think for a long time, I escaped into that just to escape reality
Hmm.
and away from my thoughts. And because I didn't know how to deal with them up until oh wait, I really started to deal with them directly, seeking professional help.
Right.
And so that was in '08, and then I'm still seeing professional help to this day. It's more of a maintenance thing today than it is uh, uh, what's the word,
Treatment.
a vigorous therapy program. It's
Right.
more of a maintenance thing today.
So if you were to align with either Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, of all the characters of those universes, comparing yourself into that universe, where would you see yourself?
I'd probably say Lord of the Rings,
Yeah?
just
And
the
what character?
adventure piece. Um, I'd probably say Frodo or Sam.
Okay.
Trying
I think
to humbly,
that,
trying to save the day, without a lot of glitz and glamour, and not needing any kind of pats in the back or recognition.
Just getting the mission done.
that's interesting. That's interesting because I would have said Bilbo Baggins because at the beginning of the Lord of the Rings, he had already done that one trip, but he had worn the ring, and it had damaged him spiritually, mentally,
Yeah,
physically,
it's true.
and
Yeah,
he was taken off to the elven world in order to recover and heal. And then it's like you said at the end, Frodo as well, same thing,
Are you
right?
saying you're
So
Frodo
yeah,
Stan?
um, I'm guess we're hobbits.
but
that's
I do put a
that's
lot of
funny.
thought. Like when I watch a movie, I'm just not watching a movie and just being zoned out. I'm actually, yeah, kind of like
You're living it.
thinking about life and
Escaping.
at the same time.
And I think that's a
I
big
found
difference between people who have not done stuff in the real world versus people who have. I think, you know, you can think, you have an active imagination, and your ability to let go in a moment is there until you have actually experienced this real world for what it is and have the ability to finally do that, you know? Fantasy
And
for
have the
me really grounds me. It really does. Like I see a lot of synergies between a lot of the characters that are written about in fantasy and science fiction in my friends and my brothers. You know, I'll tell you right now, I'm sitting in a room of Han Solos and Luke Skywalkers, even though I'm just a stormtrooper
it
who
is
joined
kind
the
of
rebellion.
interesting
You know,
though, because when you get into the sci-fi and because it's an alternate reality, but it's a
right?
way to deal with a topic without being part of reality.
That's right.
So if your reality is so harsh that you're so messed up that you're not functioning as a human, and you can not express what you're feeling, but then you find the sci-fi that kind of expresses it, So I could relate to um, Bilbo Baggins and Frodo Baggins needing to heal after being involved with the ring,
Hmm.
because the ring was warfare. You know what I mean? That's what it caused. And so that was easy to relate to that, and easy to relate to that pain and suffering. So I could identify, but I didn't have to identify with my reality, which was legal, children, access,
Hmm.
custody, uh, you know, that kind of stuff. You could just, if you were dealing with my own reality, trying to deal with those emotions, I couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
And then for me, from I got out in '95, so we returned from Somalia in June of '93, and then my stuff happened about 2 weeks later, and so I was officially released on physically on September of '94, but I had enough vacation to go to February '95.
Hmm.
So from February '95 until '08, when my second major negative event happened, I didn't know how to cope with things, and I severely struggled with it all. And I was dealing with divorce, long distance relationship with my children,
Hmm.
um, my own mental health. Um, I walled things up. Anger was my main emotion. Um, I just became a very pessimistic, negative, angry person.
Now,
Yeah,
with
so you
Because
should. No,
especially with your special forces background, when you eventually clashed with peace officers, how did you view their treatment of you? Did they treat you like a brother, or did they treat you like the enemy?
so I had two experiences. So the MPs dealt with me 2 weeks after I got back from Somalia and took me to Pembroke, and they were okay.
Okay.
The second episode was extraordinary in the sense that that person was in my wedding party in 2019 when I remarried,
Right.
and he showed me compassion, respect, um, empathy in ways I didn't expect, and he gave me a lot of hope. And so I actually went to so that was in '08, and then um, I got out of jail in I think summer of 2010,
Mm.
and I went and thanked him. He's probably never been thanked before. And then 3 years later, um, I started going. I walked into this one church which I still attend today. What's the odds at the church that he attended and he recognized me and he laughed back and welcomed me? And he's been a great friend and mentor in ways I never. This is my dog under my. I'm gonna let him out. Hold on a sec.
Of course. Sounds like a true good police officer that I
He's
wish we
amazing.
had more officers modeled after.
Yeah,
That
he
sounds
was.
like the exact personification of what a community police officer needs to be.
Yeah. So he was a staff sergeant. Now he's retired. He's director for the church I go to, and he's helped building up where I've led 2 mission trips out of the province. Um, Team leaders within the church, and then there's an alpha course that we're just in the middle of right now, where I'm a host of one of the groups. And if you would have asked me that in 2000, I would have said like, no freaking way. I
Hmm.
wouldn't have the ability. I had the wrong kind of perspective. Um, but he's one of the positive forces that helped me flip me from being an angry, pessimistic, negative person to an optimistic, empathetic, um, hopeful person.
Hmm.
Because for I think for for at least 2 decades, I was feeling pretty hopeless, to be honest, because the way things transpired to the military, and like they gave me 10 sessions. The military gave me 10 sessions to integrate back into City Street. That's all I got for counseling,
Okay.
and I quit after 7 sessions because I was bitter and angry because they weren't really trying to help me. They're
Yep.
just trying to get rid of me. And
Well, there's another layer to that too, though, Kim. Is that like we're trying to carry on as if we were the same people that we were before we took the drink, and we weren't. We had massive personality changes and everything, and then you're trying to compensate while you're losing everything and you're under attack, and your default is rage, not because you're angry, but because this drug has affected your brain so badly that you have no choice. And then you're trying to right all these wrongs, and you can't. It's physically impossible because you're physically damaged. And this comes back, of course, back to you have to get your health in order. Physical health. Um, we were working for 20 to 30 years in a state of compensation, not functioning as we should have been able to function,
Hmm.
right? And nobody recognizing what's wrong with us on top of it.
And that was
so it was
that's
funny.
the big problem right there, is that it's not recognized. So you're being treated for physical disorders that aren't there because it's mental. So you could be fine the day you're examined, and the very next day could be the best day you could be examined because you have an episode or a trigger or whatever. Especially with neurological pathway disorders, it, it's so random. Oh my god, it's so random, but it's not. You know what I mean? It's like
So
a
for
Yeah, I
me,
know.
disconnected circle.
Go ahead, Tim.
so 2 weeks after I came back from Somalia, um, my wife had a boyfriend when I came home. I had two little kids, and I tried to deal with it maturely, but 2 weeks later I snapped. So that's what I got, the first arrest for. And I had huge guilt and shame over that. And then it was several months later that I went to the base hospital after the regimental doctor recommended me to get an assessment. I went to the base hospital a few months later, and the emotions weren't as strong. I was able to talk about things intelligently. I was taking responsibility, and I wasn't falling apart. And because of that, oh, you don't got PTSD. And then I went to the NDMC. I think he was a psychologist. The same thing. I was taking responsibility, owning my stuff. I was able to talk about things intelligently, and I wasn't falling apart.
Right.
And but here I was when I got when I applied to VAC in 2019, asked for an assessment through Parkwood Hospital in London, through the OSI clinic, and I exceeded the threshold for PTSD. Um, and I've been saying the same story all the way along, but they finally picked up on it. And so Regimental Doctor had a letter on my file saying that I had a positive answer for PTSD on the questionnaire on return from Somalia. He had another letter saying that it was never addressed. And despite my regimental commander, the base commander, the area commander give me amazing positive letters to retain me, zero tolerance stuff kicked in
Hmm.
at the time. And they didn't care after that at LFC headquarters or NDHQ.
Yep.
And despite, um, like I was a clerk by trade, but they minimized, I was just doing patrols or security escort on convoys. I was doing, sentry duty. I didn't go on any active patrols with the infantry, but because of that, they minimized the effects on me. But I worked in a service commando headquarters where the medical unit, the hospital was,
Hmm.
So I heard all the reports that were happening of the horrific things that were happening, and when the unjust shootings, and then uh, one soldier shot his best friend by accident because he didn't clear his weapon properly. I saw that the person that shot his best friend minutes afterwards, like a few feet away, and they minimized all that stuff.
Also keep in mind that they refuse to recognize that methylquine causes symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
Well, and Des says in chat, any brain damage can cause a big issue in diagnosis, and that's 100% sure. You know, they're for the longest time, for the say of like the last 4 years, have been trying to find a physical issue for X to cause Y and then equal your payout being Z. And when it comes to the brain, you know, it heals differently, it is traumatized differently, it can take concussion wave after concussion wave, but you know, if you're coming if an ordinary cautious and prudent person coming home from a war zone where they have witnessed an umpteenth of what you guys have, just with no injury, they were fine, didn't see combat, didn't even do shit, you know, they kicked a rock on patrol. That was the sum of their tour. And they came home and their wife was with somebody else. That would cause trauma because you went out, you put your life on the line, you put your entire existence on your line for your family, and you can't even trust the person who's at home looking after your kids to
I'm
show
gonna back
solace
up.
in you and not some Jody.
I'm gonna back up here because this part kind of important, relevant to our discussion. So I'd say September before deployment. So I think I went over there um, end of December '92, I believe. And so in September, I came clean with my now ex-wife,
Mm,
and I had an affair when I was on exercise, months prior. So it rocked her world, and we sought counseling. We saw the base social worker, and the base social worker realized that my wife didn't really know what she wanted to do at the time, and she knew the airborne was about to go be deployed to Somalia, and she goes, "Do you want to go to Somalia?" Oh, yeah, I do. We'll go to Somalia and give her that space to figure things out. So, as part of the safety study, we were supposed to be screened beforehand to make sure that we were sound mentally.
mm,
And on that basis alone, I probably shouldn't have gone over, but I did. And so that's always, in the back of my head while I'm over there. And then when the critical incident stress team came over to Somalia because of the major event that, happened, um, that base social work was part of that critical incident stress team because I worked in headquarters. I knew she was down and I asked to talk with her. So she gave me about 10 minutes, and I talked about I'm struggling with, my mental health. And she was assessing working it out with your wife, just focusing on your job, suck it up, buttercup, and soldier on,
yep.
basically, is what she told me. She didn't refer me to anybody for to talk with while I was in theater. Like, I I did talk to some potters on my own,
Yep.
but um, but nobody directed to do that because I was declaring that I was suffering from some mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
And at minimum, upon return to Canada, she should have had some followed up where someone was seeing me, fairly quickly upon my return to check in with me. So she gave me 10 minutes and basically, you're just obsessed with working it out, suck it up, soldier, and carry on, and kick me to the curb there too.
Yep. Chalk it up to Stalker syndrome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's all always been
versus,
about dismissal
well, I was gonna
because
say,
if they
versus the inability to give up because that's how you're trained. You are not trained to give up and surrender ever,
No,
oh it's true
but you're
like
supposed to give up and surrender when it comes to your wife wanting to leave you. I'm
yeah
never gonna
and your mental
understand that
health and everything else exactly yeah
ever.
so
I'm guilty of the same thing. I fought to the bitter end. I even battled police officers on more than one occasion. I had to win my victory in court, which I did because I erred on the side of being just and proper, of course. But that's just it. They expect our warriors to go to war and fight war, but then they don't hold the same candle to
well,
people who are supposed to support them when they said they would. And then they turn their
and
back on them when they're in the middle of doing such.
in this case they took an active role against us
Correct.
they they shut down their own misgivings and wrongdoings right their own criminal activity
Yeah.
of
well, the
licensing
inquiry,
a drug pardon
during the inquiry or before.
the whole scenario, right? Like the way they dealt with us was to hide their own misgivings and hang us out to dry, you know. So Tim, um, the result of their not wanting to disclose the fact that they did something unlawful and despicable, and forced us to take an unlicensed drug that they knew had a 38% injury rate. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of dealing with that, they just let Tim go as an administrative burden to lose his life and to lose his family, to lose his relationships, and not have any help. It's almost like it was a deliberate act that, well, if we get rid of if we can convince these guys to step over the edge and kill themselves, then we don't have to be held accountable for what we did with the drug. That's what it seems like.
It wouldn't,
That's what it felt.
like, I would say that's completely far fetched and obtuse if I didn't pay attention to the last 3 years of Made,
So with me,
you know?
I fought for my career. So I had the original commander, Colonel Kevin, write an amazing letter, um, highly recommending my retention. Same with General Bino, who was the base commander, and General McKenzie, who was the area commander. And they went to Ottawa, the $0 kicked in, and they basically determined I was going to be released. And I appealed it, grieved it,
Mm-hmm.
and I got notes from a whole bunch of different people because they got copies of all this stuff. And again, they just minimize things. Um, and despite my command, the regimental doctor saying that I had positive, answers for the PTSD questionnaire, they didn't give to you. And the NDMC doctor in particular wrote a letter that he gave me the adjustment disorder, and that if I wanted help, um, I basically had to ask for it. There was
Mm-hmm.
nothing set up for me to afterwards of any kind to assist me in recovering.
Right.
Zero. And that's the part that I still got pretty mad about today. Thinking about it. And then I went all the way to the chief of defense staff. I got a letter from him saying, you know, thanks for your service. You're treated fairly. Have a good life, basically. And but there's
Yeah,
letters
oh,
where some colonel in the HQ was like, "Yeah, I was just a clerk. I just did sentry duty. Assume they didn't ask me what I did. They didn't ask me what I saw. They didn't ask me what I experienced. They just assumed I just did sentry and escort duty."
Mm.
And when you see all the, like, so as a clerk, says I saw the reports about the killings, and you can't help but be affected by that stuff. And when you see a person like just shot his best friend by accident, even though it was by accident, still pretty traumatic. And then there's a there's a bit of a distrust of who do you trust over there, because some people are over there on video, crazily, they were saying they're over there to do horrible things to the locals, and that's not what I was over there for. So
That was all part of the method as well, right? Because you have to remember, everyone, we had two of our guys in our unit medical station that each thought the other guy was going to try and kill them, right? They were paranoid. That's how bad it was, and it's just unbelievable that um, this much information being available beforehand was not presented at the time, and then to bury it, like the long-term effects, like he, Tim got his pension, but he only still gets a quarter of what I got, because even though he served under the old system, he's now pensioned under the new system. And what they did was they got rid of at least a few $1 million per person for the medical injuries that we have.
Hmm.
So literally, if over a 30-year period, they would spend 3 or $4 million on me, they would spend maybe 900 to $1 million on Tim.
So when I
For
got
the
my
same injury.
compensation, the mental health one was first. That gave me 52%, and that gave me 192,000. And then after everything, I'm all finished with back now. I think I received about 400,000 in compensation. I was on the IRB for 2 years, the income replacement benefit, while I was going to rehab. I just started like a couple of years ago, even though I got out in 94 early. Um, so now I'm finally out. I got DEC, which is diminished earning capacity, which basically it's more or less a pension for life. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's a fraction of what um, Stefan is receiving. I'm still happy because it's more than I was receiving while I was working. But yeah, it's just they changed the system so many times, and even this, I guess, even to PTSD, us back in the day when they didn't give it to me then, that criteria has changed several times as well, and that's probably why I received it today and not back then, because uh, they had a very different standard, and they really didn't do any major assessment on me either. They just did basically an interview, and
Oh, I
I
feel
believe it's
that.
because I didn't fall apart talking about it that, well, you don't got PTSD.
I had a broken neck, and the captain touched my jaw. He touched the back of my head, anywhere but my neck, and then prescribed me 500 milligram acetaminophen and said I'd be fine after 2 weeks. With a
It's
broken
crazy.
neck. Broken
Ask
fucking C3 and 4. Like, Jesus. I can only
You're
imagine when
lucky.
it comes to
You're, you're lucky
mental
you're still
health.
walking.
Well, and
You're lucky.
apparently the funny story behind that, the only reason I was still walking was because my own stubborn stupidity, because the soldier who struck me and turned my head 180 to look behind myself, I was so aggressive towards, I turned my head back around and was ready for the fight. What can I say?
Adrenaline's probably kicking in.
Infantry.
You,
Woo!
yeah,
Yeah, oh yeah, adrenaline was kicked on. I couldn't feel shit. That was, and you know what's so funny is back in the day when it happened, even in that 2 week period when it was healing, in my mind, I was fine. And I can't lie. Every single day for the last shit 10 years plus, I have adjusted my neck and it has never been proper. And you cannot quantify what that is like when that is not a physical injury but a mental one. Because you can't just, I can, some days I can crick my neck and I'm back, baby. Oh, baby. I will break dance. I'll do handstand push ups. You know, I'm back. But you can't do that when it comes to brain, especially when it comes to neurological pathways. This is why I'm so excited about THC and psilocybin. Psilocybin, especially from what I've seen in, 'em 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 in, ' creating the ability to reforge neurological pathways. Scarred over, burned out pathways that were even destroyed by concussion waves in the form of a TBI, you can inspire the brain to grow neurological pathways around the scar tissue using the proper stimuli, those being medical mushrooms, tetrahydrocannabinol in the form of cannabis or edibles, and the various
Yeah, so
terpenes therein.
for us, we have chronic encephalopathy of the brainstem.
Right,
And so what that means is there's areas within the brainstem that will seizure. You don't get a grand mal, though you probably could, but you will get systems that shut down periodically or don't act normally. They just because the brain seizures. You know what
right,
I mean? And what is really unique about psilocybin is it calms the brainstem down. It
that's right,
literally settles it right down, so it stops the seizuring. It stops the chronic inflammation, and then at the same time, it opens the frontal cortex, which allows us to engage in our thought process
that's right.
and rationalize and have engage in emotions, that kind of stuff. So it's like for myself, like every 2 weeks, 600 milligrams clockwork. I don't care if you make it illegal again, I will still be taking it.
Hmm.
It's just like allowing me to have that sense of normalcy
Hmm.
that I haven't had in 30 years, you know?
And
So,
I had an employee of mine working for me back in the day a couple of years ago, and she was chronic anxiety, chronic depression, total civilian, all
yeah,
inspired from childhood trauma and teenage trauma. You know, your typical young woman traumas that one would imagine. And every single time the microdose came on, or macrodose specifically, there was a 2 week calm period.
yeah.
And I was like inspired, so much so that I tried it myself. So I experienced a 2 week calm period, and then a further 2 weeks, and then a further 2 weeks. And as you say, yeah, if that vibration can just calm down and chill for a minute, everything else locks in. And then everything else can start vibrating, sure, but it starts to vibrate together. And I think that's really what psilocybin does.
Yeah,
Stops
you
you
tried
just
it
for that
once,
heartbeat,
Tim?
you know?
I
Yeah,
tried a lot of CBD, THC in the last, I'd say, 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't tried the psilocybin yet. But
CBD,
what was
THC,
interesting?
very different. Like I would say CBD, THC is total body versus the psilocybin is that mind body connection.
I would agree with that assessment too. The like for myself, I do the CBD in the morning, and then I do a CBD with THC added at night because it knocks me out. I only do it as edibles now, and I manufacture my own. I don't do the store bought stuff. So that way, I get what I want and the strength I need it. It and through the delivery that I want as well.
Mm.
But it has been night and day. As far as body pains and inflammation, and the ability to sleep at night. Um, just, I wish I could have started this 30 years ago when this all began. You know. Uh, and same with the psilocybin. You know, like this should have been a treatment option 30 years ago,
Yeah.
but it's going to be at least another 4 or 5 years before it even becomes a treatment option. You
Like
know, as far as
the
yeah,
ability
yeah,
of psilocybin to reset your neurological pathways, I wish it was a viable application when I was a child instead of being on the cocaine derivative Ritalin. I
really,
was
yeah, because
on psilocybin so that I could chill myself out and reset and learn my
yeah.
own process. And
So my
and
daughter was diagnosed with.
I want to say something.
Uh,
So in '08, um, '05, I started asking for some help because I realized anger was the main emotion and
mhm,
it wasn't doing me favors. '08, I got diagnosed with ADD and I was given Concerta, which is a better form of Ritalin,
yeah,
which
Concerta.
was somewhat helpful. And then months later, my world crashed and I was in cuffs again. And what was the amazing part about this is I had a year before I was sentenced. I was really seeking help because I knew I wasn't in control of my thoughts and my
Mm.
feelings. So I started seeking out counseling, and then when I went to the in front of the judge, I had 3 sentencing hearings. The first one, he never had all my information. The second one, he had it all, and he saw that I experienced a lot of childhood trauma, experienced a lot of military trauma and personal trauma, and he saw I was also doing a lot to improve my life, getting help. In a year, I was waiting to be sentenced, and he
Mm.
recommended I go to a treatment center. But to do that, I would have to take more time because what he was going to sentence me for wasn't going to be long enough. Like, I got to have a year more to qualify for a treatment center, and he was going to give me that. So, who wants to take more time? So you could tell I was waffling because I didn't want to lose my job. I thought I was willing to keep me. But he goes, if you lose your job, you lose your job. If you want to really change your life around, you want to go to a treatment center.
Mm.
So let me go home, come back in a week to give my final answer. So I realized everything I was doing on my own was going to, crap, and I needed help. So I took the extra time. So, which is the best thing I ever did because I spent 7 weeks in normal jail, but then I went to the treatment center for like it's probably 9 months,
Mm.
and it was a lot harder. They had to deal with their thoughts and feelings and programs, and they assigned me programs. I took a lot of extra stuff, and the spiritual component was a big part of my life then because um, without that, I probably wouldn't be here today. I'd be 6 feet under. So I was able to deal with one-on-one counseling, and then learn how to deal with conflict resolution, communication, and my feelings.
Mm.
And and then went to medication. Then I was just considered up until I got my diagnosis from the OSI clinic in London in 2019. Then I'm on several, which I'm trying to slowly get out. I still got to find my way. But so the cannabis part's a big part of how I'm able to get enough sleep. I really didn't sleep a lot after Somalia. I might have got 3 to 5 hours tops.
Mm.
I still get more than 5 today. Um, so with the counseling, the medication, and the cannabis, I like where I'm at today. But it's been a long road. But I
And
like
are
where I'm
you
at today.
using cannabis every night before you go to sleep?
Yeah, so I do. I take Zopiclone and clonazepam, and I also take some CBD THC oil, and usually a vape pen, or they have this uh, puffer now,
Mm-hmm.
which is strong. It's 44 milligrams of both. So with that, I'm out usually within a half an hour to 45 minutes, and I sleep better.
See,
Sleep better
I
with
find
it.
with my experience in cannabis, especially after I hate to toot my own horn, but I happen to be one of the world's leading cannabis experts. Aha.
Sound like it.
Especially with
Knowledgeable.
a soliloquy between veteran health and holistic health. And I gotta say, there's been an over stigmatization of the importance of THC in that all of my veterans that I am friends with and that I have talked to since my inception in cannabis, that I've been helping on their journey, they've been all misinformed that THC is the way to go. It is. It is. You need THC. It's a catalyst, but that's what it is a catalyst. We, you know, if you're using it for medical purposes, we are not using THC to get high. You can
That's
use THC to get high safely,
but
far
exactly.
safer than
So
getting wasted every night on alcohol
yeah,
or opioids or
bingo.
heroin or coke.
Think, yeah,
Okay? But What we require, especially, I want you to seek this out. There is a gummy company called Wild, WYLD, and they produce a CBN gummy. CBN is CB neurological. And I'll tell you, I'm still looking to get my own supply because I'm not in the game anymore. And I don't think they exist in medical. But in the recreational market, you can find them. And they are the best thing I have ever seen. They are a perfect
Well, this,
synergy between terpene
this yeah,
and
this is why I do.
cannabinoid.
This is why I take. That's why I take my strain and I do it myself as a butter. Um, Two reasons. One, it produces the CBNs, and that's what knocks me out. I never go to bed high. I'm going to bed because
You're
I'm ready to go to bed.
relaxed.
I'm exhausted. I'm
Exactly.
relaxed.
Yeah.
Right? And the other side of that is, um, in order to get that effect, it's not a high amount of THC.
Hmm.
My, the blend that I use, it's 2/3 CBD to 1/3 THC.
Right.
And I also found that when I tried vaping it, it took me a couple of years to figure all this stuff out with a lot of help, like from people like yourself too, Josh. And
Mhm.
what I experienced was that whenever I was vaping or smoking, it was ups and downs, ups and downs,
Yes.
ups and downs. But now, because it is edible, and I take it in the morning and again at night, no THC in the morning, just at night, and it's just a level. Like I just, it's like that psilocybin levels my brain. The CBD THC combo with the right terpenes levels my body. So I'm actually
Exactly.
feeling in greater shape today than I'm actually in. Because my body's
As you
falling apart on
should,
me,
motherfucker.
but I'm a happy man.
And
It's
some of my oils,
laughing.
some of my oils have CBD, CBN, and THC.
Well,
Some
the
oils I take.
THC is important for the catalyst, but like I said, like don't get me wrong. If especially if you're a veteran or a first responder or an individual with PTSD or any sort of trauma-based mental disorder, anxiety or depression on the baseline, refer to cannabis in your recreation as opposed to alcohol or any sort of narcotic because you have a cannabinoid system. You are going to be able to process it better. It's not going to create those extreme highs and lows that end you up in a jail cell wondering where the fuck you just threw your entire life, especially if you're just having a bad day. And, you know, that can lead to a better homeostasis with everything else you wish to do or are having trouble with. You might be an alcoholic, you might have an addiction issue, or you might have just undiagnosed mental health issues. But I assure you that jumping down a bottle or a pill bottle, either bottle, is not the way to go until you explore natural means. You know, we have the endocannabinoid system in both our neurological system and our
It's
our
it's important,
digestive tract,
Josh. It's also important that people understand that this stuff is just not in cannabis; it's in plants.
that's right.
That's why we have a cannabinoid system. Is because it's
That's
in our
right.
plants. When we eat our vegetables, our green leafy vegetables, that's what we're getting. The only difference is with the cannabis, we can get it in a high concentration,
Correct.
deliver it straight to the problem areas, um, and and benefit from it. Uh,
To that
it goes
exact
back.
effect, if you
Yeah,
know
it
how to
goes back to
target your
take care of your diet
terpenes,
too. Right?
right? If
Say that again, Josh.
well, if you know how to target your terpenes,
Yes, target your
that
terpenes.
is your
Yeah.
medical aspect.
Mm.
And if
And
anybody has
unfortunately,
Still
doctors
on that
PTSD,
journey.
sorry,
I'm still on that journey myself, trying to find out what works the best.
doctors know
I'll send
nothing.
you some literature on the terpenes because there's about 14 specific terpenes you can target via temperature, and then there's the same terpenes you can target via taste. through non-cannabis. So, for instance, if you have PTSD or anxiety or depression, you're trying to target caryophyllene or myrcene. Caryophyllene, the most dominant source of caryophyllene in the entire world, is black pepper. Simple ground pepper on all your food will increase your quality of life if you have PTSD, anxiety, or depression.
I didn't know that.
That's right. Caryophyllene
My,
is very
my
dominant.
first doctor I had from the cannabis company, I won't say which one it is to be politically correct, but the doctor just said experiment. Didn't give me any hint
Yep.
whatsoever
That sounds like
what to
doctors
do.
10 years ago.
Then I
That sounds
changed.
like the doctors today.
Then I
Unfortunately.
changed companies to support Mike Rude, which is a different company, where both doctors um, wanted to know my conditions, they wanted to know what medications I was on,
Mm-hmm.
and they gave me. They both recommend I do just indica only, and ones with terpenes, and they're a lot more helpful. But
See, now
you're
that's
sharing a lot of
dangerous to
information I've never
say,
heard before.
especially
What's
with
that?
somebody with PTSD. You cannot recommend indica only. Because if you
Well,
recommend a quote unquote old school diagnosis of indica hybrid sativa, that's too lame for a medical diagnosis, especially from my expert opinion. And that
well, don't forget, we
if you
don't have
recommend a
PTSD.
veteran indica only, you're setting them up for suicide failure. We
You have to remember that we don't have PTSD either,
no, but
right? We have a brain injury.
exactly. And couch locking anybody with a brain injury is dangerous. That can put them in their own cycle and put them on a self destructive cycle right away. You always, at the very minimum, have to recommend a hybrid so that there's always some fire in the tank. It can be 5 to 10%, but you got to maintain that fire because that's the danger zone for a vet. A vet is a different type of person. There's somebody who wants to step outside their comfort zone to guarantee either the safety and security of their nation or somebody else. That's a different type of person than your ordinary cautious and prudent person. So, maintaining a small amount of fire in the belly is so important because a veteran has the ability to keep themselves alive, regardless of their condition. All it takes is slight amount of resources to allow that to happen, to allow them to allow that to happen. And this is where we get our self depreciating cycles, where we encounter suicide, where this person's been left alone too long, they're spiraling alone. If that same person has a little bit of fire in their own gas tank, they're not going to hit the bottom. They're going to blast off before they hit the bottom. And that is key. And that is where a lot of mainstream doctors fuck up. Just straight up, they fuck up by recommending indica only for somebody with anxiety or depression or PTSD, thinking that it's going to trigger a psychosis. Don't get me wrong. If you take the wrong sativa and you have anxiety or PTSD or depression, you will trigger psychosis. However, if
Or a brain injury, because that's what happened with me with sativa.
exactly, but the
Yeah.
proper sativa brings you to pure peace, bliss.
No, I react either way. It is
I,
completely off the table for
if you
me.
have the proper
But
balance.
I am also a rare exception. My sensitivity to sativa is like crazy. I did a 50-50 oil
Mhm.
for 3 days last summer, and on the third day, I was up for 5 hours incoherent, scaring the crap out of my wife.
Well, and that's a
That's how
terpene log.
that's how sensitive I am to it.
If you get the
But it,
pinol, pinol is your worst enemy.
yeah,
Pinol is a pure sativa terpene that emulates everything caryophyllene does without the euphoria. And for somebody with PTSD or any brain injury whatsoever, you need euphoria so your left hemisphere takes over. Your right hemisphere is compensating for the damage. It's your logical hemisphere. Okay, we're damaged. We're on damage control. These are the sectors we need to secure. We need to not be aggressive. We need to be empathic and we need to be nice. Remember to be nice. Always remember to be nice. You're not a dick. And what the other side does is it steps up to be creative and goes, "You're not a dick. Come on. Come on."
My
And then
side goes, yeah, you are a dick. Embrace it.
that's the point. You're
Another
not a
question I
dick.
want to
That's just your
ask while we're
personality.
before I forget is
Of
about the
course.
belly being on fire. So she recommended indica because she didn't want a negative reaction to the other prescribed medications I was on.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was put on Wellbutrin, and I had stomach reactions almost immediately,
Yeah,
which is common, I think, from what Stefan's shared with me before too. And I should go off it. And I still got problems with that once in a while. If I eat um, beforehand, I usually have less problems,
mm-hmm.
and sometimes I have no problem. But sometimes I have it's bad where I can feel my stomach's in knots. And I think Dave Warner shared some things with me too about some things I should do, to help with that. But do you have any thoughts about that kind of stuff, along with just the mental health aspect?
Yes.
For sure.
So the gastrointestinal tract of Mafequin veterans or even civilians is adversely affected. One of the side effects of the drug is gastrointestinal issues. Um, in fact, most of you probably remember, Tim, there was a lot of times we have bouts of gastroenteritis going around the camps, and a lot of times we classified it as Shigella. And that was never Shigella. It was the Mefloquine. It was a side effect of the drug, and that was something that we didn't know. And so a lot of these issues are connected to the drug and to our change in physical um, health, creating more problems. And so what happens is it affects your gastrointestinal tract. That affects what you can absorb and how much. So it essentially guarantees you're going to be sick because you're not going to get the nutrients you need to recover.
All right.
And the real key, um, I think, it goes right back to the beginning of this conversation. Is you have to get your house in order, and that means you have to change your diet. You have to stop eating crap. You don't eat processed foods. You don't eat sugars. You don't eat starches. You make sure you have good clean vegetables, good clean meat sources,
Mm-hmm.
and clean and balanced fats. Lots of balanced fats because your brain does eat cholesterol. So as long as your cholesterol is balanced, you'll be happy. If you're on a cholesterol lowering drug, you will never be happy. It will only make you sicker because it won't balance your cholesterol. It will only lower it. You can only balance it by eating the right kinds of fats. And so when it comes to dealing with mental health, like I said, you have to start with your physical health because your mental health begins in your gut where you absorb your nutrients.
Good fella ZK, one of our VIPs, says real sugar, not fake. And Des Odin says, well, Butrin turns me into a rage monster. That shit is gross. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
honestly,
supposed to be the mildest one out there for antidepressants, supposedly
yep.
too.
Well, and I, shit, I have a litany of hate prescribed to me, and that I have refused to take since I was 13 years old. And the only reason I entered service, the only reason I'm an OCPP today, and the only reason I have an ability to be functional in society, because I refuse to take the knowledge of somebody who's just trying to prescribe me something. I'm sorry, there is a better way. If I had never taken medical cannabis, I would never have healed my neck. I would have never become a firefighter. I wouldn't be functional today. I'd be trying to seek out some sort of disability settlement and not push through. You
Well, you
know.
should still seek out that disability.
I
You
know.
know, like
I know I should.
seriously, John,
Now,
get off your
don't
ass.
take.
Do your damn job. Take care of yourself for once. You know, and oddly enough, this is what had to be done to me, because I was not doing it either. And it was,
100%.
guys like Dave Bona, Greg. He was on me since 2017, to deal with my shit, and I just wouldn't do it. And it took these guys harassing me for like a year before I finally acted on it. Once I acted on it,
It's true.
life started getting better, and it wasn't better like just overnight, because it took me a couple of years to learn how to use cannabis
That's right.
and what to use, because it's not readily available, and which is a real shame because it needs to be.
Well, and the
Um,
money just removes the first problem. What it does
yeah,
effectively is it takes the 90% of our brain power that we're using to just try to survive and just try to make another paycheck just until X or Y kicks in. And then it allows
yeah,
us to calm down and treat the injury, which is important. And this is the why I like Vac's take on cannabis so much is because once you are qualified, you will have cannabis coverage, and they recognize
yeah.
that
But you
it's
have to
useful.
fail. You have to fail first on pharmaceuticals.
Yes.
So the first pharmaceutical they gave me for my quote PTSD, right, was an antidepressant. Now, what was interesting about that antidepressant is in the adverse effects and the do not do list was a statement that says do not use with mefloquine.
Ha.
Aha. 1 month later, I was locked up in a psych ward for months. Geez, I wonder why.
That will beat
You
you or
Because
think they
something.
could read their own label? Like Jesus.
well, but no one knew about mefloquine. Nobody.
Yeah,
You
nobody
know
knows.
the
I talk about medical, but all my doctors are professionals, and besides what I give them, they don't know shit.
I rest
yeah.
my case. Defense rests.
Mm.
My previous
They don't know shit.
argument.
Yeah, I got this advocacy letter from Stefan, from Lisa Pym, and then Dr. Nevin, which is extensive, and I don't even know if anybody's really read it, to be honest, but nobody's really willing to comment on it.
No,
Sounds like a book
they're
to me.
afraid. Yeah.
Fear is everywhere. Oh my god. Like, honestly, we are surrounded by so much fucked up psyops these days. It's like they learned
Yeah.
what the psyops were in the 80s and 90s, thanks to you guys, by the way. Ah. And then, decided to use it everywhere? What the fuck? Great job, guys.
It's been a pleasure. And you're right. It is time for a cigar.
Oh, guys, what a fantastic episode today. I've pulled a few clips. I hope you're okay that I use them. We've talked
Sure.
about some hot subjects, that's for sure. And I think the takeaway is that no matter what you're going through, as long as you have friends, and as long as this is the onus on yourself. I know there's some of you out there watching this replay land. Yes, I'm looking very deeply into my camera right now. That are circling the drain, and you are not allowed to circle alone. You're going to reach out, you're going to hit our DMs, exclamation mark on Discord. If you're watching this in replay land, you can message me on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere. We'll put you in touch with somebody in your country, and you are not suffering alone. We have everything in place. We don't need the government support. We'll get it. We'll build them for it later.
And to caveat that, So the
Of
best thing I
course.
ever did after I applied to VAC was connect with Stefan. And
Nice.
then Stefan was the first veteran I connected with. And it meant so much to me that I can't explain. And then I met a few others. And then I applied to Soldier on Charity. I did a Wounded Warriors course a couple of years ago with my wife and met some other people. And uh, the veteran community is the best thing that,
Yep.
bar none, is the best thing that's helped me personally. Because I didn't feel good about it. Took Steph really to me feel good about my career, because my career outside of what I did on return from Somalia was, it wasn't average. It was exceptional. I was slowly promoted, fast tracking uh, leadership courses and stuff like that. And but I didn't think about any of that in a positive way until I got talking to Stefan, and I got some things up around my house now that remind me about the positive things I did do. The airborne did accomplish, despite the bad press and the way the media skewed things,
Mm-hmm.
and the government too. So yeah, it's like the veteran community is the best thing that's happened to
We're
Yeah,
just
that's when
cousins.
my healing began too. My healing began when I started reconnecting to the past. When I started reconnecting with other veterans that I served with, that's when my healing started. It's critical. You cannot be out there alone, um, and expect to accomplish things when you're not at 100%.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and I'll tell you, I didn't recognize myself as a veteran until before I met Stefan. You know that? I was hemming and hawing for a while. I'm just a reservist. Well, you also did policing and fire. Well, how many years did you do?
Yeah.
You know, then I
me.
There's
came
no
Me
to,
such.
being, as a leg,
right?
so there's about maybe a dozen of us with green berets in the airborne, which were maroon berets out of like 600, 700 people. And they reminded me like I did everything else. So yeah, so that was similar to your reserve stuff that you came to. Like I came to that
Yeah.
realization
Well,
as
I told
well.
you that was when we were talking with Josh before. It's like, you're going to recognize this the minute I say it. How many times have you seen a grenade range and someone threw a grenade improperly, and everyone's ducking and running for cover? I mean, it
Me?
happens
You mean
all
me?
the time.
Why do you think I have boomer
Yeah.
on my
Okay. So
arm,
you were the
man?
one who threw the
Tattooed
grenade.
right
I wasn't
here.
going to. I was good.
BOOMER.
I was going to leave the fact that you threw the grenade out of it, Josh. I really was.
Master Corporal
Like
damn near
people
broke
just
my
don't
shoulder
realize.
throwing me in that pit, man.
People don't realize how dangerous the job is. Like I remember the Padres. I remember picking up the Padres driver off the jump zone when the chute didn't open. And we lost half a dozen guys in a Hercules aircraft up in the Arctic in '89. That year, I think we lost close to 30 people in training accidents.
Hmm,
Right, in 1 year. Right, and people were upset when the first 30 came back from the Afghanistan war.
right.
People don't understand training is dangerous, and it doesn't matter if you're regular force or reserve. The training is the same,
Canadians have been the first boots on the ground for the last since we became Canada.
except for this year.
Well, bad example.
We have no we have no equipment. We just shut down our pilot
Okay,
program. There's no planes.
Technically, we have freelance
Canada
Canadians
is kind of
fighting in Ukraine. They're just not using the Canadian flag. That's all.
We
Boots on
send
the
our
ground.
armored vehicles to the Ukraine without weaponry or without radios. They're completely useless. They had to be fully equipped.
You know, the only ones in that environment right now who are at home are the Canadians because they're used to operating without shit and from only using antiquated shit from 50 years ago. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, we're right at home,
Yeah.
and it's even better than what we got.
Yeah.
Well, they sent us to Somalia with green, you
Shit.
know, combat uniforms instead of desert uniforms. We got them like a couple months later, and
And then we had to turn them back in again.
sizes and just it was a joke.
Remember Afghanistan and Iraq? Fairly sure we did 4 years in green too, and that shit. Oh god. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being on Vet Chat tonight. I really do appreciate it. Tim and
Thanks for
Pleasure's
having us,
Stefan,
Josh.
Josh.
we are promoting Instinctive Measures by Stefan Beardwood. And Tim appears in chapter 11 and 12. A little bit of a crossover. And I'm not going to lie, I was moved. I was incredibly moved. I was really excited to get on tonight. I know we haven't talked about the book a lot. I want to leave it to the imagination because there is a lot of content in that book that I think that needs to speak to the book. So I don't want to give a lot of it away. But check it out. We have the book link in chat. Exclamation mark book if anybody else is interested. I just posted it again. We have a GoFundMe so that Stefan can get it self-published. And here's the backing behind it. All right. Penguin, all these other publishers and all that, they're going to take the rights. I want Stefan to maintain the rights to his story. I think it's an amazing story. From what I've read so far, and I've been bang on from the start, this needs to be like an HBO miniseries. Okay, this sums up the last 35 years in in Canadian forces in North America in NATO special forces community. Honestly, it really does. Look at the diverse spectrum of people affected by the exact same thing. Okay, guys? So if you're watching this in replay land, please share this link. Please share this video. Share the GoFundMe link. And again, Stefan, Tim, thank you so much. My big brothers on that totem pole of awesome that I am so proud to hold up. Thank you so much for being on Vet Chat tonight.
Thanks, bro. Nice to meet you, Josh.
Hell yeah, man. Let's do it again.
For sure.
All right, everyone, we're gonna go to a break. We'll be right back.